welcome to the deep dive. So, today we're diving into something pretty fascinating, the inner workings of our own minds.
That's right. We're looking at these two basic ways we think, how we make judgments, how we decide things.
And our guide for this is the book Thinking Fast and Slow. We're going to be digging into the ideas from there.
Yeah, focusing on what the book calls System 1 and System 2. The goal is really to, understand how they work, what they're good at, what they're not so good at.
And how they kind of shape everything,
Yeah.
right? How we see the world, how we react to it.
Exactly. We want to break down these sometimes complex ideas and make them clear, maybe even useful for you listening.
Okay, let's get straight to it then. Maybe with a quick example. Like, think about seeing someone's face, and you instantly know they're angry.
Right. It just hits you. Fast. Automatic.
But then contrast that with trying to figure out, was it 17 times 24?
Yeah. You know it's a math problem. You know you could do it. But the answer doesn't just, appear.
No, you feel your brain kind of kicking into gear,
Yeah.
deliberately working on it.
Precisely. And those two feelings, that instant knowing versus that slow, effortful calculation, that's basically the difference we're talking about. Fast thinking versus slow thinking.
So let's start with the fast one. System 1. What's its deal?
Okay, System 1. It operates automatically, super quick, very little effort, if any. And you don't feel like you're choosing to do it.
It's like the brain's autopilot, always running in the background.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Constantly scanning, reacting.
Can you give us some everyday examples? Things System 1 just handles?
Sure. Like knowing one thing is further away than another. Or turning your head instantly when you hear a loud noise.
Simple stuff we don't even notice we're doing.
Right. Or finishing a common phrase like bread and...
Embarrassing.
Exactly. Or making that yuck face if you see something gross. Detecting, say, anger in someone's voice.
Okay.
Answering 2 plus 2. Reading words on a big billboard. Driving on an empty road if you're an experienced driver.
Right, you're not actively thinking about every little turn then.
Not consciously, no. For a chess master, finding a strong move can be like that too. Or just understanding simple sentences, even recognizing stereotypes, unfortunately.
Wow, okay. So it handles a lot without us being aware. What about this WYSAYATI thing? What you see is all there is.
Ah, yes. WYSAID. It's really key to understanding System 1. Basically, System 1 builds a story or an understanding using only the information that's easily available right then.
It doesn't worry about missing pieces.
Not really, no. It focuses on making a coherent story from what it has. The consistency matters more than, say, the completeness or quality of the information.
So it jumps to conclusions based on limited info.
It can, absolutely. It builds the best story it can with the active information, even if important stuff is left out. That's a crucial point.
And we can't just decide to switch it off, can we? Like, okay, System 1, take a break.
Nope, it's involuntary. You see a word you read it. Unless you're, completely intensely focused on something else entirely, it's always on.
Okay, so that's the fast, automatic System 1. Let's clip to the other side. System 2, the slow thinking. What defines this one?
Right. System 2, this is the one that allocates attention to effortful mental activities, things that demand focus.
Like complex calculations.
Oh!
Or really thinking through a problem.
Exactly. Complex computations, reasoning, deliberate choices. It's what we usually associate with, thinking. That subjective feeling of agency, choice, concentration.
And that multiplication problem, 17 times 24, that's squarely in System 2's court.
Oh, absolutely. That takes deliberate effort. You have to retrieve the steps from memory, hold numbers in your head, pay attention.
Yeah, you can almost feel the gears grinding.
You might even notice physical signs,
Yeah.
like your muscles tensing a bit, maybe heart rate increases, or your pupils actually dilate. The book points this out.
Really? Pupil dilation?
Yeah, it's a physiological marker of mental effort. System 2, working hard.
So System 2 is kind of the conscious, deliberate part, the one that can step in and say, hold on, System 1, let me check that.
Yes, it has that capacity. It can monitor System 1's suggestions, those intuitions and impulses, and potentially override them.
But it's not unlimited, right? You said it takes effort.
Exactly. System 2 runs on a limited budget of attention. Effortful tasks interfere with each other.
So you can't easily multiply 17 by 24 while, say, trying to merge into heavy traffic.
Definitely not. Both demand significant System 2 resources. It's like trying to run 2 heavy programs on an old computer. It slows down or crashes.
Makes sense. And what about that invisible gorilla experiment? How does that show the systems interacting or maybe failing to?
Ah, the gorilla. It's a brilliant demonstration. People are asked to focus really hard a System 2 task on counting basketball passes.
Right, counting the passes from one team.
Yeah. And while they're deep in concentration, someone in a gorilla suit walks right through the middle of the players.
And people miss it.
A surprising number of people completely miss the gorilla. Their System 2 focus makes them blind to something obvious that System 1 would normally spot instantly.
Wow. So intense focus can actually make us miss the unexpected.
It can. And what's more, people who miss it are often completely convinced it wasn't there. It shows this attention blindness, but also our blindness to our own blindness. We don't know what we miss.
That's kind of mind-blowing. So our attention is narrower than we think, and we're missing stuff all the time.
It certainly suggests our subjective experience of seeing everything isn't quite accurate when System 2 is heavily engaged.
Okay, so how do these two systems usually work together day to day? It sounds like a division of labor.
It is, yeah. And it's mostly very efficient. System 1 runs the show most of the time, handling routine stuff, forming quick impressions. It's fast, effortless.
We autopilot.
Right. But when it hits a snag, something it can't handle easily, or when something surprising happens that violates its expectations.
It calls for backup.
Basically, yes. It signals System 2 to step in, engage more effortful, deliberate processing.
So System 1 is the first responder. System 2 is the careful investigator or the boss who signs off.
That's a decent analogy. Most thoughts, most actions start with System 1. But when things get tough or need self-control or careful reasoning, System 2 takes over. And usually, System 2 gets the final word.
And the setup generally works well. Minimizes effort, optimizes performance.
Most of the time, yes, it's efficient. But, and this is a big but, System 1 has its biases. It uses shortcuts, associations, which can lead to systematic errors in judgment.
Okay, let's dig into that effort idea more. You mentioned pupil dilation and this concept of a lazy controller referring to System 2.
Yeah, so the mental effort isn't just subjective. Hess and Beatty's research show pupils dilate more when the mental task gets harder. Multiplying big numbers makes them dilate more than easy ones.
Like an energy meter.
Exactly. It reflects how much mental energy System 2 is burning.
And we naturally try to conserve that energy. The law of least effort.
Absolutely. Both physically and mentally. If there's an easier way to do something, cognitively speaking, we'll probably take it. Effort feels like a cost.
What makes some thinking harder than others? What drains that System 2 battery?
Well, things like holding multiple ideas in your mind at once, especially if you have to manipulate them or follow rules, comparing things on several features, making deliberate choices, working under time pressure. All that demands System 2 effort.
Sounds tiring. But what about that feeling of flow? When you're totally absorbed and it feels effortless.
Ah, flow. Csikszentmihalyi's concept. That's different. In flow, you're deeply concentrated, yes, but it doesn't require conscious self-control to maintain that focus. The activity itself is engaging enough.
So the effort isn't enforcing yourself to pay attention.
Exactly. The attention is captured effortlessly, freeing up resources. It distinguishes between concentrating on something versus deliberately controlling your attention to stay on task.
Okay, so what happens when System 2 is drained? When we're cognitively busy or tired?
When System 2's resources are depleted, its ability to monitor and control weakens.
So we get
Well,
sloppier.
Kind of. We're more likely to make impulsive choices, rely on stereotypes, use sexist language maybe, make superficial judgments. Self-control is a System 2 job, and it needs energy. Tax that energy, and self-control suffers.
What kinds of things deplete it? The source mentioned a few.
Yeah, lots of things. Trying hard not to think about something, suppressing emotions, making difficult choices with lots of conflict, trying to impress people, even for some people, interacting with someone from a different background if they hold prejudices.
And the signs of depletion.
Giving up more easily on hard tasks, making more impulsive purchases or food choices, reacting more aggressively, things like that.
The example of the Israeli parole judges is pretty stark, isn't it?
It really is. They looked at judges' decisions throughout the day, and parole approvals were highest right after their food breaks.
When they were refreshed.
Presumably, yeah. Then, as time passed and they got hungrier and more tired before the next bork, the approval rate dropped dramatically, almost to zero.
So tired, hungry judges just defaulted to the easier option, denying parole.
That was the interpretation. It suggests resource depletion can seriously impact complex, important judgments. They fall back on the simpler default.
Wow. And the bat and ball puzzle. How does that show System 2 being Lazy.
The classic. A bat and ball cost $1.10. The bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much is the ball?
The immediate answer that pops up is 10 cents.
Right. That's the intuitive System 1 answer, but it's wrong. If you engage System 2 and check the math, the ball is 5 cents and the bat is $1.05.
So people who say 10 cents, their System 2 just didn't bother checking.
Essentially, yes. System 2 lazily endorsed System 1's plausible-sounding but incorrect answer. It follows that law of least effort, even when a little checking would fix the error.
So intelligence isn't just about raw brain power then?
That's a really important distinction the source makes. Stanovich talks about the algorithmic mind's sheer System 2 processing power. But there's also rationality, which is the willingness to engage System 2, to use that processing power to question intuitions, override biases, think critically. You can be highly intelligent but still not very rational if your System 2 is lazy.
So smart people can still make dumb mistakes if they don't check their gut feelings.
Precisely. And interestingly, training attention, strengthening that executive control, seems to improve not just rationality, but even scores on some intelligence tests.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Priming and association. This sounds like the hidden connections our minds make.
Exactly. Our minds are fundamentally associative. Think Hume's ideas. Resemblance, contiguity, causality. Things get linked if they're similar, happen together, or if one causes the other.
Like a giant network.
A huge network of ideas. Activating one idea spreads activation to related ones, and a lot of this happens unconsciously, silently.
And priming is when one thing influences our response to another, without us knowing. Like the eat so you pee example.
Perfect example. Seeing or hearing eat, even briefly, makes you faster to recognize SOP afterwards. The idea of eating primes related concepts, like soup.
It makes that whole network related to food slightly more active.
You got it. And the effects can be surprisingly broad.
Like the study where thinking about old age made people walk slower.
Yeah, it's remarkable. People exposed to words like Florida, wrinkled, forgetful, they actually walked more slowly down the hallway afterwards, unconsciously mimicking stereotypes of old age.
Wow. And priming with money had weird effects, too.
It did. Reminders of money seem to make people more independent, more self-reliant.
That sounds okay.
But also more selfish, less likely to help someone, wanting more physical distance from others, preferring to be alone. Kind of unsettling effects, really.
Definitely. And the honesty box, with the picture of eyes.
Another great one. In an office kitchen, people put significantly more money in the honesty box for coffee when there was a poster with eyes watching them, compared to a poster of flowers.
Just the symbol of being watched changed behavior.
Apparently so. A subtle, unconscious nudge towards behaving better shows how these background cues can influence us.
Okay, let's talk about cognitive ease versus strain. How easy or hard things feel to process.
Right, cognitive ease feels good, familiar, true, effortless, like things are going smoothly.
And strain.
Strain feels difficult, unfamiliar, potentially problematic, maybe false. It's a signal that maybe you need to pay more attention, engage System 2.
What causes ease or strain, like the way something looks?
Yeah, factors like a clear, readable font induce ease. Bluey font causes strain. Repetition makes things feel easier, too. Being in a good mood promotes ease. Bad mood, strain.
Even smiling or frowning.
Apparently, yes. Physically smiling can increase ease slightly. Frowning increases strain. It's all interconnected.
And this ease can trick us, like the becoming famous overnight study.
Exactly. People saw made-up names. Later, they saw those names again, mixed with real famous names and other new made-up names.
And they thought the old made-up names were famous.
Some did, yeah. Because the name felt familiar, it processed more easily. That cognitive ease was misinterpreted as fame or recognition. It created an illusion of remembering.
So familiarity makes processing easier. And we mistake that ease for something else. Truth.
Precisely. If a statement is easy to process, maybe because you've heard it before, or it's phrased simply, it feels more true. This is why propaganda works, why repeating lies can make them seem believable. The ease of processing gets mistaken for accuracy.
But strain isn't always bad. You said it wakes up System 2.
Correct. While we might avoid it, cognitive strain can be useful. It makes us more vigilant, more analytical.
Like with that cognitive reflection test, the bat and ball thing.
Yeah. Studies found people did better on those trick questions when they were printed in a hard-to-read font. The strain seemed to trigger System 2 to double-check the intuitive, easy answer.
Interesting. So making things a bit harder can actually improve thinking sometimes.
In certain situations, yes, it reduces reliance on potentially flawed intuition.
What about the mere exposure effect? Liking things just because we've seen them before.
Right. Zhejiang studied this extensively. Repeated exposure, even subliminal, tends to increase our liking for something.
Why would that be?
The evolutionary argument is about safety. Novelty might be dangerous, so we're cautious. But if something keeps appearing and nothing bad happens, it becomes familiar, feels safe, and we start to prefer it. It signals no threat here.
Even happens in animals, like chicks and sounds they heard in the egg.
Yeah, the effect seems quite fundamental. Familiarity breeds liking, or at least reduces aversion.
And how does our mood tie into all this? Good mood, bad mood?
There's a strong link. A good mood generally signals things are safe, okay? This tends to loosen System two's control, leading to more intuitive, creative, but also more gullible thinking, more reliance on System 1 and cognitive ease.
In a bad mood.
A bad mood signals potential problems. It triggers more System 2 vigilance, more analytical, suspicious thinking, more cognitive strain, more effort.
So there are these clusters. Good mood, intuition, ease, System 1. Bad mood, analysis, strain, System 2.
Roughly speaking, yes. Cognitive ease itself also feels slightly good, creating a feedback loop.
What about that remote association test, the RAT? Finding the word that links three others.
Yeah, that's used to study intuition and creativity. People often get a feeling that a set of 3 words has a common link, even before they can name the link.
A feeling of coherence.
Exactly. That feeling seems to be a form of cognitive ease, a faint signal from the associative network that something fits together. It can guide guesses.
And people even smile slightly when they sense that coherence.
Research suggests so, yeah. Cognitive ease seems mildly pleasurable in itself.
Okay, let's move on to how we figure out what's normal and what causes what. System 1 is building a model of the world.
Constantly. It maintains this dynamic model of what's normal, what's expected in our personal world based on associations and past experiences.
And surprises the signal when reality doesn't match the model.
Exactly. Surprise is the key indicator. It happens when either our active expectations, what we consciously predict, or our passive expectations, what just seems normal, are violated.
Like repeatedly bumping into someone named John in weird places. Or seeing cars on fire at the same spot.
Perfect examples. At first, it's highly surprising. But if it happens again and again, our model shifts. It becomes less surprising, maybe even expected. Our definition of normal for that situation changes.
What about the Moses illusion? How does that fit in?
Asking, how many animals of each kind did Moses take on the ark? People often say 2, even though they know it was Noah.
Why?
Because Moses fits the general biblical context. Ark. Animals. Moses feels associatively coherent, even though it's factually wrong. System 1 doesn't flag the error because the overall gist feels right.
So coherence can trump accuracy sometimes.
It can, especially when System 2 isn't actively checking.
And our brains are actually really fast at noticing when things don't fit the norm.
Incredibly fast. Neuroscience shows the brain detects anomalies like a sentence about a pregnant man or an upper-class person with tattoos, depending on norms, very quickly. Often before we're consciously aware of what's wrong. It relies on this huge database of normal expectations.
And System 1 isn't just tracking normality, it's always looking for causes, for why things happen.
Yes, a relentless, automatic search for causality and intentions. We see an event, we immediately try to construct a story about why it happened.
Even if the cause isn't obvious.
Especially then, perhaps. We fill in the gaps to make a coherent narrative. Like seeing someone angry, we might instantly infer why they're angry. Or the bond market example news about Saddam Hussein's capture was used to explain market moves just because it was the big news of the day.
Or Jane losing her wallet in a crowded place, we instantly think pickpocket.
Exactly. The word pickpocket wasn't mentioned, but it provides the most coherent causal story for that context. System 1 supplies it automatically.
And this perception of cause and effect can be really direct, almost like seeing it, like Michel's moving squares.
Yes, Michaud's work showed we perceive causality directly in simple animations, an illusion of causality, even without physical impact. It seems innate, a System 1 function present from infancy.
Contrasting with, say, the feeling of our own willed actions.
Right. And Paul Bloom suggests this built-in ability to separate physical cause and effect from intentional agency might be one root of religious beliefs.
Okay, what about ambiguity? System 1 doesn't like it.
Hates it, basically. It suppresses doubt and resolves ambiguity instantly based on context. Like that ABC 1213 figure, you see B or 13, not both, and you're usually unaware of the alternative interpretation.
Or the sentence, "and approached the bank."
Yeah, you probably pictured a financial institution, unless the context strongly suggested a riverbank. System 1 settles on one meaning quickly.
And actually doubting, considering alternatives, that's System two's job again.
That's what Daniel Gilbert's research implies. His studies showed that if System 2 is busy, like holding numbers in memory, people are worse at disbelieving false statements they read.
So believing is the default, the easy System 1 path, and unbelieving takes System 2 effort.
It seems so. System 1 is gullible, System 2 is in charge of doubt, but it's often busy or lazy.
Okay, another bias. The halo effect.
Yeah.
Liking or disliking everything about someone based on a first impression.
Pretty much. If your first impression of someone is positive, say, they seem friendly, you unconsciously assume other good things about them, like they're also generous or smart, even with no evidence.
And the reverse if the first impression is bad.
Exactly. It creates this exaggerated emotional coherence. System 1 wants a simple, consistent picture.
And the order you learn things matters. First impressions stick.
Very much so. The halo effect gives extra weight to initial information. Learning something good first can make you interpret later negative information less harshly. I even saw it in grading essays. The first one could bias how I read the next one from the same student.
Right. Now, let's revisit WY SIAD. What you see is all there is. Why is it so fundamental?
Because it explains so much about System 1. It works only with activated ideas. Information not retrieved might as well not exist for it.
So the goal is a coherent story from the available bits, not necessarily an accurate story based on all possible evidence.
Exactly. Coherence trumps completeness. It's a machine for jumping to conclusions based on limited available data.
Like asking if Mindic will be a good leader, just knowing she's intelligent and strong.
Yes. We form a quick positive judgment based on those traits, and System 1 doesn't automatically prompt us to ask, but what information am I missing? What are her weaknesses?
In that Stanford study with one-sided evidence, people were more confident with less information.
That's the power of WYS-ADI. Seeing only supporting evidence creates a very coherent story, leading to high confidence. Seeing conflicting evidence makes the story less coherent and reduces confidence, even though the judgment might actually be better informed.
So WYSID underlies overconfidence, framing effects, ignoring base rates, like in the Steve the Librarian example.
All of those, yes. We focus on the coherent story presented, the description of Steve, and ignore the less available statistical information, the base rate of librarians versus farmers.
Okay. And System 1 is always making these basic assessments. What kind?
Things crucial for survival. Is it good or bad? Threat or opportunity? Normal or strange? Approach or avoid? Quick evaluations of the environment.
Like reading faces quickly for trustworthiness. Todorov's work.
Exactly. Assessing friendliness, hostility, dominant submission from faces very rapidly seems to be an evolved skill.
And it assesses things related to language, too. Similarity, causality.
Yes, these are part of understanding. How similar is this to that? Does this fit the prototype? Did A cause B? How easily do related ideas come to mind? These assessments happen automatically.
Like in that picture with the block towers. We instantly see similarity, but counting takes effort.
Perfect illustration. We see the towers are roughly the same height, a basic assessment, but verifying if they have the exact same number of blocks as the pile on the floor, that needs System 2 counting.
And the mental shotgun. System 1 doing more than asked.
Yeah, it computes things beyond the specific intention. Like aiming a shotgun, you hit more than just the target. You try to remember a name. System 1 might also assess attractiveness.
Or processing the literal meaning of a sentence, but also getting metaphorical vibes.
Right. It often generates answers to related, easier questions even when not explicitly asked.
And intensity matching. Mapping across different scales, like the Exxon Valdez study.
Yeah, that's a key example. People's willingness to pay to save birds wasn't very sensitive to the number of birds. 2,000 versus 20,000 versus 200,000.
Why not?
It seems the intense emotional prototype one suffering oil-soaked bird dominated. System 1 matched the intensity of that emotion to a dollar amount, largely ignoring the quantity. It substituted the emotional intensity for the numerical question.
Which leads us right into substituting question, or heuristics, swapping hard questions for easy ones.
Exactly. It's a core idea. Faced with a hard target question, System 1 can't answer easily.
Like, how happy are you with your life overall?
It might substitute an easier heuristic question, like, how am I feeling right now?
Yeah.
The mental shotgun and intensity matching provide answers to these easier questions.
And system 2 often just accepts the answer to the easier question.
Often, yes, especially if it's busy or, well, lazy. It endorses the heuristic answer without checking if it really addressed the original difficult question. We think we answered the hard one, but we didn't.
The affect heuristic fits here too, going with your gut feeling.
Absolutely. If you like something, a positive affect, you judge its benefits as high and risks as low. If you dislike it, you see high risks and low benefits. The feeling substitutes for a complex evaluation.
And system 2 just rationalizes the feeling afterwards.
Often, yes. It acts like an apologist for System 1's emotions, finding reasons to support the feeling rather than evaluating it objectively.
Okay, so to wrap up system 1's personality, it's fast, automatic, effortless, associative.
Relies on what's available. WISII substitutes hard questions, matches intensity, jumps to conclusions.
Sees prototypes, struggles with statistics, sensitive to change and loss, narrow framing.
That's a pretty good summary of its key features, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so that's been a really deep look into these two ways our minds work, system 1 and system 2.
Yeah, fundamentally different, each with its strengths, each with its potential pitfalls.
And understanding them, even just starting to, gives you such a different lens on your own thinking, doesn't it? On
Yeah.
judgments, decisions, everything.
Absolutely. We hit some really key insights, I think. Attention blindness, the power of priming, cognitive ease, feeling like truth, how automatic so many assessments are.
Hopefully for you listening, it helps make sense of some of the complexity without being overwhelming. A framework, maybe?
That's the idea.
So maybe the final thought to leave everyone with, think about a decision you made recently, anything big or small.
Yeah.
Can you sort of see the fingerprints of system 1 and system 2 on it now? Any heuristics, any biases you recognize?
And knowing what you know now, would you approach it any differently next time?
Good question. Definitely something to chew on. That's the point of a deep dive.
Yeah.
Right. Until next time.